Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Last Cast podcast. Thanks for joining us again. We are joined this week by Ben Dobson from Stocks and Bankhouse Fly Fisheries. How are you doing, Ben?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, not bad.
That looks a lovely sunny day where you are.
Yeah, I know. This is annoying, isn't it? We've had all those storms, then we get closed down, and we've had stunning weather ever since.
Yeah,
you know what's going to happen, don't you? When it reopens, it'll be on the bones of its arse.
Nothing more certain. So we're joined by Paul as well. Paul's hope you're isolating, Paul.
From who?
You? With that nasty cough you've got?
I've been isolated for 5 years, man.
I know this is the first time anyone's ever saw you what you look like.
That's a bastard.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how many filters you put on, it's not going to change much. So this week, Ben, we're going to talk about your fisheries, how the coronavirus is affecting those fisheries. We've got a few questions.
He's done his voice because you can hear him talk.
Yeah. Well, you must have some tight jeans on, or someone's squeezing his nuts.
This is just been joined by my little dog.
That's it. So that's an endless supply of dubbing there.
You look like your dog.
Head of security here.
So which one?
You've got a bit more hair than him.
Yeah, it's getting longer.
I remember when I didn't have any grey bits.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'm decided I'm not going down the just for men route. I think you're just chasing a never-ending thing there, Paul. I'm following your example.
Yeah. A lot of people think I'm in my 50s. You know, I'm not.
So we were talking before we started here about some sort of recent developments with getting back fishing. I know Ben, you were saying you were talking to Andy Taylor. So just fill us in on what that discussion was, if you will.
Yeah, it was a chat with Andy Taylor. We obviously, nobody knows. We're all in the dark. Angling Trust are in the dark as well, but they're also in touch with Sports England, and Sports England have sort of tried to prioritise certain sports, as in the ones that are less risky and that might be able to get up and running again before perhaps all the sports are up and running. Things like orienteering, golf, and of course fishing, just to name 3 that you might be able to take part in and restart and obviously maintain good social distancing. Now this, as I say, is nothing to do with the government saying this. This is what Sports England are sort of suggesting, that they might be able to have a tiered sort of restart of certain sports in the future. Their guess was only a guess. They were sort of suggesting that they think it might be sort of towards the end of May, beginning of June, that sort of time, sadly. I think there's a feeling with the government, and I understand this completely, that if you start certain things, like, for example, if we send the kids back to school, there'll be a lot of people in the country that might just think, well, if the kids are going back to school, or if he can go fishing, then I can do this and I can do that. And I think it could be dangerous. So once you start relaxing it, I think it'd be very, very difficult to put the brakes on the British public, because we're all going stir crazy.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, it's probably going to be a little bit further away than perhaps it could be, you know.
You see, Scott, I had the same conversation with Ben Dobson, and when you listen to Ben and what Andy Taylor was saying, and you listen to what Ben said, the two very much alike, and it's like. Yeah. Andy had indicated to Ben that they would probably allow bank fishing before boat fishing, and boat fishing would be one person only. Now, Ben said virtually the same thing, so I think this is more coming from Angling Trust than what the government's prepared to give.
Yeah.
Again, you know, if people had sat and thought it through, surely boat fishing should be allowed before bank fishing, simply because when you're in a boat, nobody can disturb you. But when you're on the bank, you cannot prevent anybody coming up to you. So the risks are bigger on the bank.
But I mean,
I don't think this is anything that's been said in government. I think this is two people who have had the chat, now speaking to me and Ben, and both stories are virtually identical. So, sorry guys, but I just think it's a load of shite.
Well, there was something in one of the papers this morning, apparently, about how Sporting, I think it was Sporting and all the Angling Trust, or maybe it's even the Environment Agency, which suggested this, and it was going to be brought up. But it's the Prime Minister's decision whenever he's back making these calls, I suppose. But if we get fishing by end of May, June, I think a lot of people would accept that as a result, especially what you said about how we were going to categorise, if we are going to categorise sport, you would think, taking stocks as a prime example, people do go for walks around stocks, but there's a lot of bank areas at stocks which I'm assuming you could sort of cordon off just for anglers and say, look, we have to put pegs in the ground, for example, every 20 yards. You can't go within 5 yards of the bank. So you're 2 metre social distancing.
Yeah, I think you could do that with anglers. But like you say, you've got walkers who don't read these signs.
At stocks, luckily, the footpath doesn't. The only area that the footpath comes near the water is around the jetty. The rest of the place, it's quite a long way back from the water's edge, so it wouldn't affect them. But I think there's other things involved. It comes back to that thing again. I don't think the government will look at relaxing anything because of the message it gives across, and that it might make people start taking their own initiative into what they think they can do and adding stuff on and that sort of thing, which would be disaster. But it's clear to us, we all know, that you could come fishing to either Bankhouse or Stocks now, and you would run far less risk than going shopping for some milk in Asda. With the amount of people that you're going to come in contact with, because in Asda, I don't know about you, but it drives me bonkers with people not following us and just walking straight past you at a metre or whatever, or coming towards you in a walk. It's very hard to maintain social distancing because people just don't seem to take it seriously, or some people don't. So
it's very hard to keep social behaviours.
I know. Tell me about it. It's it's difficult.
I want to get a metal product with a 6-foot stick.
Well, the thing is, I go out and do the shopping, and I'm doing the shopping for Alex and James and Charlotte and my 80-year-old dad who's got asthma. You know what I mean? And he's also, got very low iron counts at the moment. So it's. You step too close to me and you're stepping too close to 7 people, 6 people. You know what I mean? And that's what annoys me,
Mum?
Really well, yeah. They're both, they would just walk past a second.
So it was just when you mentioned about the shopping you were doing, you mentioned everyone but your mum.
Well, I mentioned my dad because he's more vulnerable than my mum. You know what I mean? Yeah. But she's fine. Yeah, they're not driving each other too mad anyway. Yeah. That's the one thing I think we're in it, as you say, for the long haul. You could very easily open the fisheries up and say, look, you can phone ahead, you can pay over the phone for your visit. You don't even need to come in the lodge. You can just go straight down there and go fishing, and you could really manage it in a way that drop the contact. But I think the problem is the bigger message that it gives over that's the dangerous thing. Yeah.
Could you not get yourself a rifle with a good scope on, and while we're getting on the boat, if a walker comes too close,
do you know? Yeah, well, we've got Paul Bebb. He's a fair marksman.
I think the idea is to restrict deaths, not promote, put more on the count.
Well, collateral damage,
I'll be honest.
This is the height of body it stops.
I'm in Ben's sort of yard with this one. I don't think we'll get fishing this season.
Really? Wow.
We don't.
Don't.
Unless you decide to stop open through the winter. But I don't think it's going to happen. Honestly.
There is the other thing that we haven't discussed, and that is the travel. There's one thing being able to do it. At the moment, they're wanting everyone to stay in the vicinity of their house. They don't want people to take a drive to go for a walk. They want people just to go for a walk. And if you've got to drive to a fishery, then potentially you've got people moving around from one area to another and that sort of thing, which is something that they don't want, that social mobility. So that might, if and when we do reopen, that might also become a factor that determines where you're allowed to fish. It might be within a certain distance of where you live, you know. Yeah.
How many times have you been on the lake at Bankhouse then? Because it's like,
You know, I've
QT.
got you find this hard to believe, but I haven't fished it. And
see, if I was you, Ben, I would have fished it, videoed it, and just started laughing.
Well, I did discuss it with Charlotte in the idea of putting podcasts and stuff up there, or making some videos of fishing on there. I don't know. My feeling at the time when we discussed it was that I don't think people would take too lightly the fact that I can walk out my back door and go fishing whenever I want to when they're stuck in a flat in town somewhere or something like that. So I thought it'd be a bit gloating. I've spent a lot of time outside. I've got so much maintenance and gardening and stuff. Because this time of year for me, my feet don't normally touch the floor. I'm back and forth from stocks. Leave here in first thing in the morning. Don't get back till late at night. Bankhouse gets no attention from me. Norman, who works here, keeps the fishery all tidy and stuff. But for the first time this year, you can see in the background down here, there's my wheelbarrow and everything. I'm cutting trees down. I'm gardening. I'm just basically getting 10 years worth of gardening in that should have been done, and keeping all the grass cut and cutting back all the trees around Bankhouse and all that sort of stuff. And of course, feeding me fish every day.
I was just about to say, Ben, you know, with stocks and with Bankhouse, I know you produce some of your fish.
Yeah.
But you also buy fish in.
Yeah.
What's happened about the fish? Because you'll have had to book them fish earlier in the season, did you?
Well, actually, I bought a lot of fish in just prior to us opening. We just put, about 15,000 quid's worth of fish in just into stocks before we got shut down. Which, of course, and this is a time where you're supposed to be bringing in all the money to pay for all those things. So it's a really, really difficult time for us financially. In the farm, I normally get a big load in April, which I'm not getting it now. In fact, I'd have 2 or 3 loads over the next 6 weeks.
I normally have a big load around about 8 o'clock every morning.
Well, I've got fish in the farm. I haven't got as many as I would normally have at this time of year for this reason, because the deliveries haven't come. But I've got a lot of my big boys, my pets. I can go around and feed those now, and I actually take my time. Usually it's a bit of a rush job because I'm rushing everywhere, but now I'm getting back to actually enjoying it, chucking in single pellets and watching which beast comes up to take it. You know what I mean? It's quite an enjoyable little highlight of the day, actually, going and feeding me big fish.
Would it not be financially better to you to put them into stocks and let them feed themselves?
No, I mean, I think that, as you pointed out, we have no idea when I'm going to open. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of fish in stocks. Stocks had its entire pre-season stocking of 4,000 fish. And then because of the weather, we had to cancel every single opening day boat because of the storms, and then we had repeated storms the following 2 weekends after that. So the fishing pressure on stocks, the number of people that have been out and fished it compared to a normal year, was very low. Sadly, the day that we got closed down, that Tuesday, our first closed day, the Monday had just fished. It had come alive. It had fished its nuts off. I think the rod average was 10 point something, and everyone was catching everywhere.
You would be in Scott.
Yeah, that's 4 points to make.
So we'd just come online with this weather coming in, and it had just started to fish, and then we got closed. So there's tons of fish in stocks. They're not getting fished over, so there'll be no fishing pressure. I noticed a post that Alistair Beaumont put on Facebook the other day. They'd all been getting enthusing about when they can get back to fishing and it'll all be nice nymphs and buzzers and everything else. And Alistair made the point, hang on, mate, these fish haven't been fished over. It's going to be snakes and blobs. It's going to be snakes and blobs on fast classes and die 3 that's going to do all the damage. He may well be right.
You can just imagine if fingers crossed, if you get open anywhere near June time, pulling blobs and boobies to the top sort of 6 inches, getting them fish bow waving after it. They'll be everywhere across the lake.
It'll be like it used to be years ago.
Yeah, it's going to be, that first drift right across the middle.
But I must admit, the other day, Ivor at Draycott put a video up of Draycott there at Flatcombe.
Oh, yeah.
Was showing all the buzzers and everything. And you could see all the comments below. Oh, looks great, Ivor. How's this, Ivor? Looks good. Doing this, doing that. And I just put, you twat.
Well, that was a bit about why I haven't put videos of me out there fishing and stuff. And I haven't fished it. I mean, as I say, there's a nice thing that Bankhouse here has got a lot of resident fishing. It's not like stocks that basically we put thousands of stockies in there and they get fished over and those fish wise up as the season gets older. Bankhouse has always got a high number of resident fish in there that get fished over every day and that know to ignore most of the things that come in front of them. So they tend to only take something that's completely different or something that's fished very imitatively on very light gear, and you can catch, there's tons of 4 to 6 pound brownies in there that very rarely get caught. And we keep stocking it 2 or 3 times a week so that obviously people are catching those fresher fish as well. But after this lockdown period, Bankhouse it is productive enough to feed. It's full of little sticklebacks, it's full of little dace, little roach. It's even got little perch in there now and a few carp. I don't know where they will come from, but there's quite a lot of fish in there. But they're all these fish will all be growing on and they're not getting fished over. So it'll be very interesting to see how it fishes when it does open up after this long rest period, Yeah.
Just to be clear, Ben.
Pike in stocks yet?
Huh?
You got any pike in stocks?
No one's put pike
Your
in
face
stocks
idea when I come back and says, what did the hell? I says, fished all day and I got a pike.
Yeah.
Oh, you've never seen somebody's face just like.
So just to be clear, Ben, that you're not stocking stocks or Bankhouse. You've got no fish that have been ordered in that you've got to put in the lakes because they've already sort of been prepaid for. And cause I think other fish about that.
No, I'm not. I don't. I mean, a lot of my fish that I bought in, ready-made fish, I call them, that were bought in of size to go straight in, go in during the pre-season stocking, and then my farms take over through March and April usually. So, and then security.
Them private fishermen coming in.
That's a poacher.
Yeah, and then I've obviously I'm buying in slightly smaller fish through April, which then kick in around June time, So I'm stuck. So I haven't in that, but I would imagine even these other fisheries, I don't know, but I don't think, will these lorries be able to transport the fish? I mean, are they allowed to go and stock these reservoirs and travel, hundreds of miles and put fish in?
I'm sure I heard something regarding the likes of Rutland and that, who had already prepaid for their fish. So it was a case of we put them in and that was it.
Yeah.
So they are getting stocked, are they? Right.
Yeah, I saw a similar thing. Yeah, that they paid for the fish and they were going to put them in as long as they, up until
they'll be able to travel with them because it's delivery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose big fisheries that put a lot of fish in, if they suddenly say, "Oh, I don't want the fish," then the farms, yourself, Ben, the farms have got the smaller fish coming through, and they need the space to put them small fish in to grow. So
yeah, I've got a lot because I haven't bought these fish in April yet. I will get them in once once the lockdown period's through. Because we've got to watch our pennies. You know what I mean? We've got no monies coming in, and we've got a lot of overheads that go out every month that we can't get away from, and I've got a lot of bills of amassed. So it's very tight purse strings for Charlotte and I at the minute. So, but once we get reopening,
could you not rent the car park out?
Hey, there might be some light at the tunnel for that. That might be so.
But that's a private joke. We'll not go into that.
Yeah, let's try. This is the first one we might be able to keep to. I haven't got to tick the box to say it's adult only. So if we don't mention that, we might be okay.
We'll keep that.
So is this right from what I've been told that when it does reopen, you will be doing a reduced rate.
No, we'll be restocking, and it'll be hopefully fishing as normal. Yeah.
So that sort of leads us on to my next sort of thing I want to talk about, Ben. Obviously, the competition side at Stocks is quite a big thing, as it is with a lot of the venues of your size. Will you sort of rejig your program? Say we get fishing, I don't know, in July. Will you still have your comps August, September, October, as long as fisheries open?
Yeah, we're going to rejig all our competitions. We have a competition called the Rio Fours, which is a team event, which is normally done and dusted by the beginning of June. So I would like to run that because they're a good bunch of guys. So if we open in time, some sort of that will be run and rescheduled. All of them are going to have to be rejigged and relooked at. I know that there is rejigging going on, and behind the scenes there's stuff happening from other organisations. I'm sure John Horsey will be desperate to get what he can out for his competition as well, to get that started as soon as possible. I know that there's other things in the pipeline elsewhere for nationally, so we'll have to fit those in. I know Derek Moore has been on to me about holding a charity day, an event in raising money for the NHS, which I think everybody will support. So we'll be doing one of those at the first available date when we reopen. Fingers crossed. We will get in what we can. I think there's a lot that's going to be gone. I mean, we know England qualifiers, that sort of stuff. Anglian water, I believe, is not happening. Well, Anglian water doesn't come to Stocks anymore, but I think there's obviously without the qualifiers and that sort of thing. So yeah, it'll probably be moving we'll probably have more events in September, October than we would usually have.
So on a normal year, Ben, just to give us an idea, I know competition anglers, they get a lot of stick from non-competition anglers. For a fishery like yourself, how important is a regular match? So you've got guys fishing the match, they've got guys practicing the day or 2 days before. To a venue like you know, how important are those comps throughout the year that you keep ticking over?
They are absolutely essential. I mean, there's no shadow, you know, without the competition scene, without Stocks being sort of pretty much regarded as the north of England competition venue where a lot of the big things come, you know, it wouldn't be a viable business. Stocks is remote. You know, let's be honest. We're not just 10 minutes outside Manchester where you've got a great big conurbation there that can serve you with people with 10-minute drive. You know what I mean? You have to travel to Stocks. We've got a relatively scattered local community which support us with regular anglers, which are incredibly important to the fishery as well. You know, their support and the bread and butter. But without the competitions and the revenue that they bring in, it wouldn't be a viable business. There's no shadow of it. So they're very, very important. And competition promotion. I know competition anglers get stick. I obviously, as a competition angler myself, and I fell into it rather than I didn't head into it. I started sort of trying to organise competitions and trying to sort of generate interest, and then ended up standing in for people when team members couldn't turn up and this sort of thing, and then got the bug myself. And I think it's the best thing that's ever happened for my fishing. I've been fishing all my entire life. Competition fly fishing is awesome.
So for publicising the fishery, I suppose that's competition anglers talk about the fishing more than non-competition anglers.
Yes.
So if the fishery is fishing well in a comp, you know, you post up the figures. More people look at the figures after a comp to see who's qualified. Then in, you know, middle of the week on a Tuesday or Wednesday when they're at work, you know, they've got more focus on how's Stocks fishing this weekend, how's Chew fishing this weekend. They'll go to the match results to see. Because personally, I think you get a better idea of how the fishery's fishing during a comp.
I think it even goes beyond fisheries. You know, I mean, I think competition anglers are absolutely integral to the sport, and whether it's one guy's cup of tea or not is irrelevant, because the comp anglers, generally speaking, they're on the crest of the wave, driving the sport forwards. When it comes to new ideas, new tackle, new things, they're looking for the next thing. They invest a huge amount of their thinking time, their actual time, and their money far more than most people do into their sport, because it's their enthusiastic competition sport, just like any sportsman does into their sport. If they're taking it seriously and they go for it, you invest a lot more of your time and effort and resources into it. So
what people forget is as well with competition anglers, I know they're not always the best loved people, but it's more sociable than not being a competition angler.
Miles more sociable.
People don't realise how social it is. And you know, somebody asked me the other day, what part of it are you missing? And the biggest part for me is not interacting and not seeing people that I see every year, and I see them when I'm fishing. If I didn't go fishing, I wouldn't normally meet them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
you get put in a boat. I mean, not only, as you say, does it, your angling ability just goes like that straight up, because suddenly, I mean, I could, as a complete novice, jump in a boat with someone like you, Scott. You know what I mean? I can get drawn, or someone like you, Paul. No, yeah, got you in. And,
Paul as well.
And suddenly, you know, if you've got half a brain in your head, you may not be able to match you on the day, but bloody hell, you should get off the boat learning a lot. You know, if you can watch and you can observe and you can see and you talk to these people, and everybody, that 99% of competition anglers are good sociable people when you get in a, you know, and you learn a huge amount from each other. You give and take, you know what I mean? And it's brilliant. And I've had the best angling experiences in my life have come from competition fly fishing, so I can't knock it at all, you know.
I think one of the best things I like about stocks is Paul, you'll know, when everyone gets around that table in the lodge in the morning, bacon, egg sandwich, brew.
I think that's what all fisheries are missing now.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping to get a chance to pick it up, because I think
it's stocks having the crack, and I forgot all about what time it is.
Yeah.
And there's been a few times, Ben, where there's been a few people in, and I've looked at me watching, it's like, shit, it's 10 o'clock. I should have been out an hour ago. And it's just, that atmosphere is great, and that's what, you know, I'm going to mention it, but that's what is missing at the likes of Rutland now.
Well, I can't speak for Rutland, but I do know that when we first started getting the national competition, started holding heats on stocks, which was, I mean, John Horsey was the first person to bring his, so it was the Lexus then, and to bring that competition, and that was with big thanks to Tony Plant. Tony Plant basically put me in contact with John Horsey and sent him my way, and he took a punt on it. A lot of the people that had been, we sort of raised a lot of Northwest anglers that were competition fishing for the first time. They were just our regulars that we persuaded to have a go, but it also attracted competition anglers that were already veterans at it from around the rest of the country. And one thing they all commented on was how friendly everybody was at stocks, and how much everybody shared the information, because there was no tinfoil round flies or anything like this. Everybody was going, oh, I've had 3 on this, and perhaps a little bit naively, really. But in many ways,
I'm at the stage where if I put the tin foil run, everybody knows it's a ginger minus.
I think it doesn't take you long to realise, does it, that people are actually more interested in what they've got on than what you've got on. You know what I mean? I think there's no magic flies, is there, really, apart from the Midas, of course, Paul. You know.
Well, no. Again, you can have the best fly in the world, and it's all down to the person that's got it.
Yeah.
And what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
If there was one magical fly, we'd all be using it.
Yeah.
And there's not. And again, it's the same with the Midas. I've got ultimate confidence. I expect to take every single time off that fly.
And if you could bottle that, what you just said there, you'd make a fortune. Because I don't
better than any of that amino acid or whatever it's called.
I think that's come. So, I mean, people that aren't into fly fishing or into fishing at all, you know, I have another side to my life where I coach a lot of rugby, you know, and they comment to me, how can you compete at fishing? They don't really get it. They sort of say, how can you really compete? Isn't it just luck? You know what I mean? Isn't it? They have no idea that the same sort of guys are up there all the time consistently, and when you go on that water, whichever water it is around the country, you all know who the guys to beat are on that particular place, and who's on form and who's going, and it so often goes to form. That bottling that confidence and that sort of X factor on the day. And some anglers seem to be able to maintain it at such a high level all the time, and others seem to be able to dip in and out of it from one season to another. You know, it seems to vary. It's interesting.
Talking about Stocks as a venue, it's a perfect venue for a comp because obviously you've got your popular areas, Northern Shallows, the islands, etc. But if you need to get out the way, you can go to pretty much anywhere on Stocks. If you drift 20 yards out from the bank, if you're down that bank first, you'll pick a fish up at some point.
Yeah.
If you compare that with the likes of Grafham or Rutland or wherever, if you might go fish, but if there's no fish there, you just won't catch one. It's not like you're going to come across a random one like you would at Stocks. So that's why I think
it's Stocks. I would never bet against anywhere being the winning area.
No, they do. They spread so much, especially once you've got the water's warmed up a little bit and you start to get that influx of terrestrials from the surface. Then they just scatter. They're no longer early season. Craig Barr will come up early season and fish that spring international match, and he's going to be one of the men to beat on the day because he's learned that if you get down that bank and you find the right drop off that level with your die 3 or die 5, and someone like him can be devastating working those margins. But once that water warms up and those fish suddenly become less interested in the depth of water they're swimming over, and so they're just cruising around a foot or so under the surface, and they're just all over the whole lake. And the areas that build up with hotspots are usually because stuff's being blown off the bank from that hillside, or there's a calm lane appearing across from the island or something like that, and they'll just suddenly fill up with fish. The thing is with Stocks as well is it's because it's such an irregular shape, you can't see everywhere from anywhere.
Yeah.
So there's always boats hiding, and you can look around in a match, there's 20 boats in the match and you can see 5 or 6 of them. And you're thinking, Christ, where's everybody else? Now, even Rutland, Stocks is 360 acres, Grafham 1,600 acres, but you can see everywhere, and you can look round and think, Christ, there's a whole load of boats gone down to Gaines there. You know what I mean? All there's Savages, his stuff. There's 30 boats over there. We better go and have a look. You know what I mean? And you don't get that, and you can come away from at the end of a match. You can come away from your area on Stocks thinking, well, I've done pretty well there. I've got 8 fish on a tough day. And then suddenly 4 or 5 boats come round the corner from you close and they've all got cricket scores and you were completely unaware of it, So it's interesting. Yeah.
The EPP we fished last year, that was sort of similar time of year, end of April, May, I think. And that's not normally a time you'd assume with fish being out in the open, but that day it was flat calm.
Yeah.
And we were fishing right over the middle between Gull and Willow.
Yeah,
that's deep.
Yeah,
there isn't it? You're not talking. You're nowhere near the bottom when you're in the middle of that channel through that was just alive with fish. Absolutely alive with them. So moving on.
You had
Ben,
some cricket scores, didn't you?
A fish that's not off that day. Yeah, that was a day that you'd normally associate with the end of May, June, where they were chasing the fly, they were bow waving after it, right across the top. It wasn't something that you'd normally get in the end of April.
No.
Brilliant fishing. Brilliant. So moving on, Ben, we've got a couple of questions that have been put in by some of the listeners. So we'll just put them over. So the first one, again, taking Stocks into account, what would be your favourite drift?
Oh, wow.
I had to think about this last night.
Well, if I'm honest, scenic wise, I like the northern end of the reservoir because it's just there's no stone dam, there's no tower, there's no nothing. But saying that, end of May, beginning of June, that sort of time, starting at the top of the wind when it's coming from the southwest, and you start sort of somewhere just outside the lodge and you go all the way across and it blows you right down, right across the middle, right across open water, right into sort of Curry's Cast or beyond, down towards the causeway. Because just like you said, when they're in that up in high in the water, you can do one long drift. You don't need to repeat. You don't need a drogue, and you can just pick fish up steadily away all the way over. And I love those great long drifts, Yeah. But that's more to do with the type of fishing that's happening at that time of year, probably. Yeah.
What's yours, Paul, out of interest?
Very simple. I started here and drift over to B. No, at that time of year, I don't mind as long as it's open water.
Yeah. If I was to say tomorrow that you fishing a match on stocks, you didn't have any practice, where would you start?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I always start drifting onto the sea just before Bell Point. That's usually my first. That's in case Ben's dumped any fish in. The stories are moving the way around the bank.
Yeah.
We're talking about
the little bay after Curry's onto the Point of Goal and then into the Northern Shallows. But
for me,
I'd start at Curry's. I'd start at the Boulders, drift into Curry's, then bounce onto the front of Gull, and then over to Willow and see that. Unless I was getting plenty of action, I wouldn't be.
It's not really that much different. But as soon as it warms up, the longer the drift for me, the better.
Yeah.
Because, like Ben says, you're not going to get loads of boats out there, and you can just pick up the odd fish. But on a long drift, an odd fish is maybe 8 or 9 by the time you get to the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it would depend on whether or not I was on the engine of a point.
So you're still in stocky stage.
But if I was on the point, I would try everything in my power to get to the Willows, drift down the side of the Willows. If I was on the engine, I would be Northern Shallows.
Yeah.
Probably to the left of the point.
And we're talking about a sort of southwesterly wind here, aren't we? So
yeah, down at the bottom.
You're trying to be bankside.
Yeah, early season tactics.
Yeah.
Well, that's no different than anybody.
Yeah.
But when it comes to proper fishing, where you think.
I'm on the river by then, but I don't really care. Question. Sorry, Paul?
I says, you're pretty good on the rivers.
I forget what to do now. It's been that long since I've been on them. Second question to put forward to you, Ben, would be what annoys you as a fishery manager?
I could answer this straight away.
What annoys you most?
A certain person.
What do we as anglers do that annoys you as a fishery manager? Is it rubbish? Is it bad mouthing the fishery when it's not the fishery's fault? Is it social media? Pros and cons of it?
Do you know what? There's lots of little niggles and stuff. There's far more positives than negatives, but we get credited with far more control than we have over our fisheries, and that annoys me. It annoys me. I know it sounds daft, but we're in control of the quality of the trout that we put in, right? So we can monitor the fish that are going into our lakes. We can make sure that our suppliers only supply us with the best quality stuff, and I can make sure that I rear the best fish I can rear with the best food to feed them on, and that means I can't cut corners or costs. Yeah, that I have control of. Once I've stocked the fish in the lake, I have zero control. If it fishes well, it's not down to me. It's down to the conditions being good. On the other flip side to that, if it fishes hard, because that's what I would like to change. Whether fishing for me is never bad, it's never shit, it's never rubbish. No fishery in the country ever wants making into a car park, like I've heard on my travels around the country fishing with people that have been unsuccessful. It's just a hard day's fishing. And if you catch 2 fish on a hard day, great, well done. You've done well. You know what I mean? It's not shit. And there are so many variables that affect the fish, whether it's internal factors of the fish, whether it's their biological rhythms, whether it's external factors like air pressure, water temperature, suspended solids, pH, you can go on and on and on.
Whether the fish stopped.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. These fish, I don't think there's a single fishery that's a known, renowned fishery in the country that thinks it's a good idea to have a business model where taking money off fishermen without putting fish in is a good idea. I don't think there's a good known fishery in the country that would do that. So there's a few minor small fisheries that no one talks about that's tried it, but not the big fisheries that everybody knows about and that everybody trusts and everyone does. Every fishery manager wants you to come, wants you to have a fantastic day, wants you to come back. Yeah. They want you to do it. That's what they want. They don't want people. They don't want man after man coming in going, bloody hell, that was a nightmare. Didn't get anything. Leaving away. Jesus, let me know when it turns on. You know what I mean? Yeah. This sort of thing. So that is what I'd like anglers to look at it as, just the challenge that it is in front of them. It's fishing, and it's not catching. On a good day, you can catch 20 fish, 30 fish, and you can have one of those red letter days. On another day, it can be rock hard and you can catch 2 fish, and that's still a good day. Yeah. You know, and my personal favorite competitions are I love chew. I'm a massive fan of chew. I don't care whether it's August and chew being 14 foot deep average and loads of weed beds everywhere. It's warm and it's hard and people are all struggling and we're all trying to catch. Well, great. Get your head down, set your stall out and stick at it and wait for that take. And if you're on it at 2 o'clock when nothing's happened and suddenly a little window opens and dung, 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 you can pull in 2 or 3 or 4 fish and then you're up there. You're in the positions. And I actually prefer that style of fishing than a race to 10 or a race to 12. You know, it's. I
think for me, stocks is probably one of the venues that is affected by weather more than most, especially rain.
Yeah, back end.
I fished a lot of matches July time where we've had a summer storm and a lot of shit's come down the river into the lake. There was a great one there where the air came up about 10 feet in a day. We fished the Lexus.
I remember that.
That was I had a great day that day.
Yeah. It can be. Stocks keeps you on its toes, doesn't it? It can be. Yeah. It can be very. As can chew. I remember being. Do you know what the funny thing is? Stocks is actually one of the. If you had a sort of a scale of productivity, biological productivity of waters. So, you know, the sort of least productive with regards to aquatic biology, then you've got somewhere that's an upland reservoir like Stocks, like many of the other upland reservoirs around the country. They're going to be far less productive than the Midlands and your Graffhams and your Rutlands and your Ibrooks and what have you. And then you get down towards Chew, where you've just got weed beds and it's all shallow and everywhere, which is ridiculously productive. You know, I think the fish grow quicker in Chew when you've stocked them. You know, after you've stocked them, you know, there's so much food in there, they can choose what to eat. And yet, so if you had a scale from most productive or from the least productive, the upland reservoirs going down to sort of steady round as you go round the circle, and then you get up towards the most productive, and you get to Chew again, there, weirdly, Stocks and Chew fish similarly. So many of the methods that work well on Chew are the primary methods on Stocks as well. And it's fascinating. Different. I mean, we, as you know, Graffham and Rutland, you know, you can win a lot of matches with die 3s and die 5s and pulling. You know what I mean? And of course you can on Rutland and on Stocks and Chew as well. But you win a lot on those latter 2 waters, Stocks and Chew, on nymphs and dries and everything else. In fact, probably through the summer months on Stocks, dries in the right hands is the most consistent method.
For me, Stocks is quite similar to what we've got up in the northeast called Sweet Hope. I've
heard a lot about
that's an upland sort of style, and the fish there, if you fish sort of 3 or 4 foot down, a lot of times you're underneath them.
Correct, yeah.
They're always looking up, and it's the same with Stocks.
Yeah.
Always looking up.
Yeah.
So Ben, thanks for joining us. We've just got our, I'm not going to say it's the 60-second quiz because we tried it last week and Paul made it into about 15 minutes.
No problem.
We'll just say guest Q&A and say how long it takes us. So I want the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask this, not think about it. Barring yours, favourite venue?
Chew.
Favourite line?
Floater.
Favourite fly?
Foam daddy.
Place you would most like to fish that you haven't already fished already?
Stocks.
Bankhouse, he's gone this afternoon.
Corrib.
Nice. Proudest moment in fly fishing?
catching my profile picture fish on Facebook, which was under a glacier in the top of Norway. Myself and Russell Owen had fished for 3 days without catching anything, and we were under a lot of pressure. So that fish just was awesome. Took 3 days to catch.
Most embarrassing moment in fly fishing.
Oh, this is simple.
Chew. Is this Chew where you sat on the seat?
Look, I know there's loads. That was blagged, and I'm not telling that story. So, yeah, you're right.
Okay, then is it the one where the fish swam off with your net?
No, it's not that one either. I'm actually going to tell you after. I'm going to tell you my second most embarrassing story, because I was teaching on Baghouse here, and I'd been giving this guy casting lessons on the grass, and then, whilst we were doing it, we'd noticed a lot of fish rising just off the one of the first piers as you come to on Bankhouse. It's got a big weeping ash tree behind it that comes down. The branches come down to more or less ground level. And I set him up with a little dry fly, and I walked to that jet. I said, I tell you what, just while we're on this peg, I said, I'll cast for you. I said, because that tree's really hazardous behind us, and I don't want you to get stuck in it. So sure enough, I set off. First cast, I got stuck straight into the tree that I'd just warned him about, which he found highly amusing. I tried to pull the fly out. It wouldn't come out. It was fast. So I was like, right, we're going to have to snap the line and things. So I just handed him the rod, and I took hold of the line and walked backwards, pulling the line tight. And I walked straight off the end of the jetty backwards. I just felt my foot hit thin air, and I went over, completely under. This guy was in absolute stitches. If it had been on You've Been Framed, you'd have thought it had been set up. You really would. But yeah, he did book another lesson for the following week, though, so that was good. Yeah.
Tom Haley.
I am desperately a number one. And the last one would be, you are stuck on a desert island. You can take one person and one thing with you. Who's the person and what's the thing?
Well, the person is Charlotte, without a shadow. And the thing?
Your whip.
How big's the island?
Let's call it Gull Island.
Oh, tiny. Right. Okay. In that case, oh gosh, it would be. It'd be practical. It'd be fishing equipment, a fishing rod or something. It'd have to be either that or a knife. Charlotte and a knife, just in case,
Which one do you go for first?
Yeah.
Great. So that's it. I was a lot shorter than last week, so we're getting better. We just finish off now. We normally have a little section where there's anything to get off our chest. So, guys, if you want to rant about anything to do with fly fishing, now is your time. I've got one, so if you haven't, I will fire away.
Go on. I'm quite calm this week.
Mine is, now with everyone being sat at home, loads of people are tying flies and putting videos of tying flies on Facebook.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening to this that do that, can you please make sure your camera is in focus and you've got a background that you can actually see what you're tying?
Yeah.
How many times have I watched a video this week where the guy's got a black shirt on and the camera's 4 foot away from the fly and he's tying a black dowelback? You've got no idea what's going on there. If you want to watch a video of how to tie a fly, watch David McPhail. End of.
Or Paul Davison, of course.
Yeah, well, you probably fall asleep even faster. But what I mean by Davey is that the camera position and the focus and the clarity, you can see Davey's flies so well.
To be fair, though, and I'm not taking the plea here, Davey doesn't just get his phone and plonk it in front of him, which most of these guys are doing, or they've got a camera. I know Davey will do it similar to what I do. I normally have a 2-camera setup, one for close in on the fly, one a bit back so people can see you dubbing it and what have you. Now I know Davey's into his cameras a little bit. And just from things that I've heard him speak about, so Davey knows what he's looking for. Davey understands the basics of photography. 9 times out of 10, these people who are putting the videos up in the minute, it's because they're bored shitless.
But at least
stop criticising everybody.
At least
if only being you, you know, we couldn't even get the first line out of you the day without you calling Ben the wrong Ben. So don't start that shit. People are just trying to keep themselves occupied.
Hang on.
You're an absolute nightmare. You think you're perfect.
How long did it take you to figure out how to add Ben onto the Skype call? We were supposed to do this 20 minutes ago before you started, and then you're like, Scott, can you just do it, please?
All I'm going to say, get off my chest, would be when you do get round to come fishing, just chill out and enjoy it. I once had a day on stocks where I'd got one guy in a boat. He was the only person on a boat, and I'd got one bank angler, and they had a row. Because
I bet you one of them was Derek Moore. Wasn't it?
I'm not saying anything.
And the other one is as well.
But all I'm saying is chill out, enjoy it, whether it's and from now on, fishing's never rubbish. It's just either easy or good or great or it's hard. That's it.
You know something? If all 3 of us were going out fishing every day and bagging up every day, we wouldn't be sitting here talking.
It'd be dull as dishwater.
Yeah, because you'd be doing your rugby, I'd be doing a bit of golf, and he'd be back to his stripping days.
Peacock quill, you mean? You mean peacock quill? When have you ever played golf?
Who?
You.
I'll have you known I was once called bandit.
A bandit? Handicap bandit?
Yeah, I was once called a bandit. And they were deadly serious. I thought they were taking the mick. I was pissed. I am. No, any sport, I think, when you're that type of person, if it's hand-to-eye coordination, any of them types of sports I'm pretty good at. It's just when you've got to run in between.
So you prefer French cricket?
French kiss.
French
cricket, what's that?
It's where you don't have to run. You stand with the bat in front of your legs, and they've got to hit your legs with the ball.
See, I thought French cricket must mean it involves some kind of running away.
No, it involves no running. You don't have to run in between the wickets.
Right, I think that's a good time to end it, guys. Thanks for joining us, Ben. It's been
great. Lovely to speak to you, Ben.
Yeah, good to see you both.
On the lake.
See you later on the
Cheers. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers, mate. Bye.